Hey, you. You're finally awake.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. The PlayStation 1 when it was released was an absolute juggernaut. It brought CD-based gaming, correctly, to the market and everybody loved the thing, and there were over 3,000 games in total that released for the system. But today I'm going to be going through what I think are the top 20 games of all time. Now I'm going to make this big caveat. There are plenty of big games that aren't going to make this list. Why? Because I've not played them yet. So it'll be a bit wrong for me to put them on this list when I haven't played them. So the whole point of this video is giving you my top 20, and I want to hear from you guys. What are your favourites? What are the games I need to play? And I know there are going to be a few. Some of you are going to be shouting from the rooftops, and fine, I'll accept that. But also accept I couldn't play every game as a kid. I can now play them for the podcast, which is great, but I couldn't back then. So just deal with it, okay people? So feel free to shout at me, feel free to call me an idiot. We know the drill with me, I don't give one, it's all fine, but it's all fun and games. You want to argue? Go for it. You want to tell me your experiences? Love it. That's what I want to hear. This whole thing is about just having a laugh and just giving me banter. That's what it is. Also, I'm going to put a huge point here. I have to edit this in. I did this, I forgot to mention it, I got to number 10 at this point. I am not going to include Final Fantasy VII or Metal Gear Solid in this list. For the simple reason, nearly every single list will have those two as 1 and 2. 99% of them will have that. Not everyone, but most will, okay? Now for me, I would have been no different. I would have had Final Fantasy VII as number 1 and Metal Gear Solid as number 2. We all know, if you've been following the channel, Final Fantasy VII is my favourite game of all time. So, to mix this up, I've taken them out, okay? So, you can mention if it is your favourite game, but I'm not going to put them as 1 and 2, okay? So they're out the list. Bye-bye. Gone. Gonzo. Done. Okay? Moving on. And if you do like me and you do like my content, please give it a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. We've also got a weekly podcast where this week we're looking at Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver, for the PlayStation 1, oddly enough. And we've also got a $1 a month Patreon, and you can find the link in the description below. As I said, I want to hear from you guys, because that's where the fun is. Right, let's get into it, shall we? The top 20 games for the PlayStation 1. 20, Ridge Racer. Okay, fair enough, look, we're not off to a good start. Ridge Racer. I know some of you are going to be screaming, oh, but Dan, there are plenty better Ridge Racers. Yeah, I know there are. There are plenty better Ridge Racers, but this was the one I played. And again, I reiterate, this is my list. I ain't played the other Ridge Race. I played one, so there we go. Now, I thought this had really impressive visuals at the time. Like, really, when I was playing old arcades, this is only the time I saw really cool driving games, and it was never that on this Mega Drive and the Super Nintendo. And yeah, okay, it looks dated for money now, but at the time for the PlayStation 1, it was a great showcase title. Like, I loved the guy going, Ridge Racer! Like, the controls were great, I didn't have to use the steering wheel because I seemed to be better playing with the control. The game felt really fast. Like, now I feel like I can drift around a corner because of Ridge Racer. I keep telling the wife, can I just drift around this bend? And she's like, for God's sake, no, we got the kids in the car. Not that she let me do it anyway, but because of this game, I feel I have the balance on that and I could do it in real life. Don't do it, everyone, that's not how this works. But I loved Ridge Racer. I completed it, I 100%ed it. I just got hooked on it, and I don't really get hooked on driving games, but this I did. And it's a shame I really didn't follow on from this, so yeah, don't be expecting Gran Turismo on this list. It ain't here. I know, start shouting at me now. Number 19, Abe's Oddysee. Now this was a puzzle adventure game, but I don't know what you'd call it. I think it's a puzzle game at the heart of it, but you know, you might think otherwise. Now this game's intro scared the absolute fudge out of me. A lot of PlayStation games did. It was very dark when you found that, Abe, my name is Abe. That's gonna hurt my throat if I keep doing that. So Abe, good old Abe, found out he's gonna be eaten by his bosses because their profits were down, so he decides he has to leave the factory. And while doing that, he has to try and save his fellow workers, who are also gonna be made into food. So he's essentially on the run and has the option, I say option because it's up to you, if you want to save everyone. Now, nearly everything in the factory and then outside can kill Abe, but you get unlimited lives, which is quite cool. Abe can run, jump, throw bombs, throw meat, he can do a whole range of things. He can even take over guards, which is so cool. And the sadistic fucker can go around and shoot people as the guard, and then blow them up and laugh when he did it. You could also communicate with other members of your race by whistling, talking to them, and farting. Yes, this game had a button for farting. I don't know, but that is incredible. That just goes on my top 20 just for that alone. This game had a pretty grim ending, spoiler if you didn't save more than 51, because eventually you get kidnapped and your own race go, fuck him, basically, he can die. The game was very dark, it was very gritty, and had impressive cutscenes which used the pre-rendered backgrounds that Final Fantasy VII and VIII were very good at using. Number 18, Dino Crisis. It's Resident Evil with Dino Crisis, need I say more? I mean, come on, it's what it is. They may as well just put that on the tin. But the box art was cool with that Velociraptor's claw. That was really cool. Although a Velociraptor's more like a chicken. So, we you know, that kind of... Imagine that. Imagine Regina's going around and just shooting chicken like Velociraptors. That'd actually be quite funny. It's not scary at all. But either way, we're joined Regina and friends. Actually, just Regina's arse. I know, we're all thinking the same thing because that's all you see for the majority of the game. As we watch the other dinos that are eating her and wish that we were the ones eating her arse. Shut up, I'm immature. Leave me alone. You're attempting to extract a mad scientist who has somehow brought dinos into the modern day because... science. Like Resident Evil, you run around with tank controls, which are a pain in the arse, solve puzzles which make no sense in being there, running away from everything to save bullets, and then thinking, hang on, did I already kill that fucker? Did I put him to sleep? Oh wait, he's back again. Whilst it wasn't as well received as the Resident Evil series, it did spawn sequels and many have screamed for a new entry, and I really sit there and go, I don't understand why you don't do this, Capcom. This would make you a lot of money. Honestly, Resident Evil sells them anything. They've got enough IPs, I understand that, but just do Resident Evil with a dinosaur. Again, and it's free money. Like, plus, I do like amazing things, like having to fight a T-Rex, that was cool. And there's a scene when he's on the floor and you can act like you killed him. No, you didn't, so you got electrocuted. But to be fair, I would have then shot the thing in the eye, just to, double tap, make sure. But no, just getting a nice screenshot of me looking cool after it's on the floor with electrocuted body, that's enough for me. Number 17, Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver. Now, this was a follow-up to Legacy of Kain Blood Omen, and this game just won me on the design of the protagonist alone. Look at him, Raziel looks cool as Fook. You play as the vampire Raziel, who, because his wings end up coming before his master Kain, was made to have a bath. Unfortunately, having a bath in this world means that you die, and your skin melts, and his jaw fell off. Now I understand why my daughter hates having a bath. You're brought back to life as a wraith, and basically told go kill Kain because he killed you. Now, it kind of plays like a Metroidvania-like. Would you call it that? Like I would, because you end up killing things, getting new abilities, and then accessing to new areas. In my eyes, that's a Metroidvania. I don't know. Basically, you kill everything in sight, and sucking up their souls. There's two overlapping worlds with the physical and the spiritual realm, and this was really good in setting the atmosphere because the world would become very distorted when you went to the spiritual realm. And it made me think, to be honest, I don't really want to live in either of them. The game had a lot of blood for its time, including mincing up a boss, literally. It also has some of the best voice acting in video games ever. I will fight you. They go full ham at this, and it's absolutely amazing. Number 16, Ape Escape. Now, whenever I think of this, my mind just goes back to get in the net, you little shit. When a monkey ends up finding a device that makes him super smart, he goes across time to try and change everything. You play as Spike, the typical anime protagonist, who is basically tasked with catching all the apes with a net. A net. Seriously, that's your main weapon. Well, you do have a lightsaber that stuns them, which is cool, but you have a net. Like, this shouldn't have worked. But it does, because this game's hilarious. Like, the apes were funny, they all had their own personalities, their own little things if you looked at their profiles, and catching them was fun. The levels were well designed, it was quite interesting to explore. It introduced a dual analog controller, which was very revolutionary for its time, and also players could recharge their health through eating cookies. That's exactly how you recharge your health in modern day life. I wish my wife would understand, but she's worried I'm going to get diabetes or something like that. And number 15, Rival Schools. Okay, this seems a bit like a weird one. Again, this list is so subjective, it's ridiculous. But I've only started playing Rival Schools because of the Capcom Fighting Collection. It was on there, and I've had so much fun playing it. Because, again, this is one I never got my hands on when I was a kid. I just didn't have access to it. And seeing kids fight In schools, it was awesome. Like, I didn't get to fights in schools, and if anyone did have a fight, we'd just do monkey noises, go ooh, 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 and the teachers would break it up immediately, so it never really happened. This is a team-based fighting game with anime-style characters and has that school-theme setting. You pick 2 characters, one of them's the main character, and the other one is kind of your assist, and they can help you before team-ups. It's so anime, it is ridiculous, and it does fall in the Street Fighter world, as some of those characters have made an appearance in later Street Fighter games. That's being Akira. But talking about Street Fighter, Sakura made an appearance, so clearly that's all I used to use, because as we know, Sakura is the greatest character of all time. She's just king. But I love the characters, I love the appearance of it all, and I love the fighting school of it. It's pretty cool. Like, it's absolutely chaotic, you have high damage special moves, and it was just each fighter represented a different school, so they all had different distinct fighting styles, whichever they were. Although it makes me laugh is that if you went to one school to fight another school, again, that never really happened, because unfortunately the police were called. Pfft, pathetic. Why? You know, just establishing law and order. Like, I hope to play more of this going forward, and I know there's Project Justice, which is Rival Schools 2, which I haven't yet sunk my teeth into, and will probably take over this one when I actually get my hands to playing it. And number 14, Time Crisis. Okay, this list is going all over the place, and I can appreciate this. And many are going to sit here and go, damn, that is not a top 20 game, but for me, it is, because of the memories I have for it. And the fact that I used to play this in the arcade, so being able to take it home was amazing. Like, I loved the design of the character, the box art was cool. Yes, I know there is 2 and 3, and you could probably sit here and go 2 is the better game. It would be cool if you had 2 TVs and 2 consoles, but I didn't. So I got to play Time Crisis 1 because that thing was absolutely amazing. So you play as a one-man army called Richard, who armed with one gun, such a cool name, Richard, who armed with one gun takes on a whole army, and somehow he manages to win. The gameplay is slick, although I do sit there and admit it's nowhere near as good as the arcade, because the thing ran in a goddamn arcade machine. So it's never going to look as good as an arcade. I know this, and we'll be talking about it for some of the other games on this list. I know people are going to be sitting, this is not a top 20 game. For me, I played this thing to death because it was just such a cool experience to have the arcade feel at home. It'd be the same way as having Ridge Racer with a steering wheel. I just loved that because I put so much money into Time Crisis, the goddamn thing owed me because I gave it so much money. And number 13, Gundam Battle Assault 2. Okay, no one's going to have this on their bingo card. Again, I know it's not a top 20 game, but for me, being a big fan of fighting games and a big fan of the Gundam series, it's actually a pretty decent fighting game if you give it a go. There's one on the Super Nintendo as well, which you really should give a go, and that's pretty good. A lot of people we put off because it's mechs and it's Gundam. I can see that, that's fine. But actually when you break it down and just take off all the, the skin of it all, it's really good. Like, the fighting style's really good. The mechs actually control somewhat realistically. Okay, I know some people are going to go, that's not how it would actually fly. I know that. But it actually does make it feel like you're in these big devices. And the series focuses on a number of Gundam series. So if you're a big fan of the anime and the manga, you're going to be in heaven. We've got Mobile Suit Gundam, Gundam Z, Gundam Double Zeta, we've got Gundam Winged Endless Waltz, G Gundam, and various spin-offs from that original Mobile Suit Gundam series. And there are so many to choose from. And the fact that the game decided to use the Endless Waltz Gundam Wing was, for me, a big win. Like, getting to play as Wing Zero Custom was absolutely cool. Geeks in here who know the mech, who know what I'm on about, will be like, yes, that is a fantastic decision, I understand this is why it's a top 20, if not top 10 game of all time. I'm maybe getting ahead of myself. But as I said, it handles really well. It fights really well. Each Gundam has their own super moves, and some of the characters are actually voiced by the anime, although not Hiro Yui, which is really annoying. Like, I played this extensively with my friend Matty, and he had his Heavy Arms custom, I had my Wing Zero custom, and I'd always wait for him to do his special, and then Wing Zero would do his, because I would always be able to get the jump on it because of the height that Wing Zero got, and then just fire this big-ass dual cannon right in his face and go, ha 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 ha, bitch! Ah, I'm so mature. And number 12, Crash Bandicoot. Revolutionary. Yes, I throw this word out, revolutionary. This is how I felt this game was when I first got it. It was one of the first games I ever played on the PlayStation, and I believe it changed how platformers can be played. So rather than just simply going from left to right, you could go in all sorts of directions. So Crash could go towards you, Crash could come away from you. And Crash himself was a brilliant character. He was a Bandicoot that was tested by the evil Dr. Cortex, and he somehow managed to escape, and now he's on the hunt to get his girlfriend back. The game was extremely colourful. It looked incredible in 3D. It had some amazing intro music. I don't care what anyone says, that first music of dum 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 dum, which is probably playing in the background, stupid editing me, is so iconic and cool. Crash went across a number of different areas, including Aztec jungles, their laboratories, he had streams, bridges in the sky, or even riding a pissed off hog, which was hilarious. Now, although the game looked extremely inviting to kids, it was actually very difficult, especially later levels scaling across the rainy tower levels, which of those were brutal. And some of the levels were considered too hard or just didn't make the cut, and eventually they were available for the Insanity version, and I played them and oh my god, they are hard. Crash had the ability to spin and break boxes, and that was the key to completing the game 100%. Smashing all the boxes in each level gave you a gem, and those gems grant you the completion bonus, and some of them give you secret paths to hidden areas. Now, although there are bosses in this game, I ain't going to go through them because they're just not that exciting. But the series itself has been considered legendary, and Crash himself has kind of gone up and down. But when Crash came out, he was often considered the PlayStation mascot for a while, alongside Parappa the Rapper and Abe. The road hasn't always been happy for a Crash Bandicoot, with a lot of flops in his collection, but finally it looks like Crash is finally getting back on his feet, although one day I wish he appears in Smash Bros. Number 11, Spider-Man. Now for me, this was the first really good Spider-Man game. People couldn't come at me and say, no, there was this Spider-Man game for this console, that's fine, it's fine. But for me, this was the one when I truly felt like Spider-Man. Like, yeah, you could beat up thugs, that was fine, but it was the fact you could be swinging. You can actually swing and climb, although the question when you're swinging is what the absolute fuck is he swinging onto, because it just looks like he is swinging from the air. Also, there was like an orange skyline, which was weird, but obviously you couldn't do the whole city because I think the PlayStation would collapse on itself if you tried to do that. I can't remember much of the story, I really can't, but what I do remember was just swinging around, it was just so much fun. But I do remember with the ending, it involved you being chased by a Carnage who'd possessed Doc Ock, which was scary as anything. But the most amazing thing to me about this game was the costumes. Wow, oh goddamn wow. They looked at Spider-Man's history and they really hit this on the head, because you've got some of the best costumes ever from the whole of Spidey series. And for me, being a big Spider-Man nerd, to have the Scarlet Spider and also to have Ben Reilly when he became Spider-Man was absolutely amazing. You probably don't know who some of those characters are. Go do some research. Ben Reilly and Scarlet Spider are absolute godlike in my opinion. At number 10, Tekken 2. Okay, top 10 now, and some of you are probably already getting fidgety fingers going, whoa, hang on, there's still a lot of games to be mentioned here. Yes, I know. Now, this was the sequel to the first one, and yes, whilst Tekken 1 was okay, Tekken 2 was what really blew my mind. It was in fact the first game I ever saw for the PlayStation 1, so I do have a special place in my heart for it. But it made me think when I looked at the box that this is adult gaming, this is where I need to grow up as a person. The character models were significantly better than the first, and the game handled so much better. It also kept that somewhat dark aesthetic from the first game, because at the beginning you see Heihachi climbing up a cliff because Kazuya threw him off at the end of the first one, which was just hilarious. The game itself was very brutal, and it made Street Fighter look a little bit silly, although I know there is Mortal Kombat. The character roster was also incredible. I loved using Armor King, Prototype Jack, and Jun Kazama, or June Kazama, however you want to pronounce it, because she's an absolute hero. And unfortunately, this was the last appearance of it until Tekken 8, for God's sake. The game even had a boxing kangaroo and a boxing velociraptor. That is just goddamn amazing. Each character had their own ending, and some were serious and some were just goddamn silly. I've mentioned this before when I've done a Tekken overview, but David James, the England footballer, said that Tekken 2 was the reason his football ability went to shit because he ended up playing this game too much. Number 9, Soul Blade, or Soul Edge, considering where you are in the world. Now for me it was called Soul Blade because that's where I lived in Europe, in England, and it's an arena fighter where kicking out your opponents is considered just as much as a win as knocking them out. It was developed by Namco and eventually leads to the incredible Soul Calibur and obviously the even better Soul Calibur 2. The character could circle around their opponents and hit them from behind or the side. Now there was definitely a feel of Tekken here, well it was made by Namco, but this time you had weapons. Each weapon had a weapon gauge, and when it's broken, the player must fight on without having that weapon to smack the other person. Now the whole story is that every character is after the legendary sword called the Soul Edge, and either to destroy the thing because they know it's evil, or to use its power and probably get corrupted. The roster was pretty cool. you had characters from all sorts of different backgrounds around that time. You had essentially someone from medieval China, you had a samurai, you had a pirate, you had like a tribesman who I used to use called Rock, he was pretty cool, and they also had Valdo, who is literally a gimp with blades. He is, I have no idea how you describe him. The final character you end up going against is the Pirates of Antes, because he is the one currently in possession of the Soul Edge. And then when you end up beating him, he turns into a big fire thing because it's the physical manifestation of the sword. Now, I had played early weapons games like Samurai Showdown, but this was the one that hit, and I played this thing for hours and hours and hours. And I was really sad that my character actually became the big bad guy in the Soul Calibur series Nightmare at the end of it all. I admit I didn't get back into it until Soul Calibur 2, because it had Link in it because I played the GameCube version, but I still played this one for hours, and I still think Soul Blade is an underrated gem for the console, and not enough people talk about it, because you should go back and really give it a go. Also, there's a bit of a theme, because fighting games are appearing a little bit. Number 8, Crash Bandicoot 2, Cortex Strikes Back. Yes, this was the second game of the trilogy, and I've not included the third one, I thought 2 will do, and it dramatically improved on everything from the first game. In this one, it happens pretty much after the first one. Dr. Cortex is asking Crash for help for crystals, and the dumbass simply agrees to it because Crash is an absolute moron. I should actually add about Crash Bandicoot, the advertising for the first game was goddamn perfect, where he used to shout at Mario, sorry I've just gone back a step, but that's how my mind goes sometimes. It's very similar to the first game, follows a lot of the same tropes, a lot of the same environment-esque sort of things, but there were new places to go explore. Unlike the first game, however, Crash has a lot more moves. Now he has a body slam, he can slide, he has a long jump and a high jump. Also, there's no hog to jump on this time, but a polar bear, which is quite cool. There's not much more to say here, but it's basically Crash 1, but far, far, far better. And number 7, Street Fighter Alpha 3. Now, some of you are going to be going, why? No, Daniel, no. And again, I understand that, but this is why this is on a subjective list, not an objective list. This took everything from the first few games and essentially went, you know what, we're just going to go stupid. We're going to go, let's put everyone from the original Street Fighter 2, some more Street Fighter 1 characters, fuck it, just throw everything in. Doesn't matter, it's just chaos. Don't worry about balance, that's all over the place. There's absolutely no balance. We're going to have different fighting styles in there with the ISM system. It's just nuts. This game focuses heavily on Evil Ryu, which Capcom has ruined by the way, but also the amount of single player options available, including the World Tour mode, were absolutely amazing. I spent a hell of a lot of time playing this growing up because it was so cool when I bought the original PlayStation version. I probably still got that back home in the UK. The box art looks cool, everything about this oozes class. Yes, I know other versions such as the Saturn port had much better music, it also had much better effects when you looked at puddles and shit like that. Fair enough, I'll accept stuff like that, but this played so well and I loved it. And again, I sunk hours into this, and when we could do the mode where Ryu and Ken can fight against Bison, I loved playing that mode as well. So me and my brother would fight the crap out of Bison and act like if it was the movie. Just leave me alone because I got to play more Street Fighter, and it held me over until I finally got Street Fighter 4, which took a bloody long time. At number 6, Final Fantasy VIII. Now, just because I said Final Fantasy 7 wasn't going to be on this list, doesn't mean that there's not going to be Final Fantasies on this list. I also love RPGs, that's one of my also big things I like to do. Now, Final Fantasy VIII is the follow-up to 7, which was one hell of a task. How do you follow one of the best games of all time? They followed the adventure of Squall, a moody prick, and I do feel sorry for him sometimes, and his group who are trying to fight the sorceress called Adia. This evolved into a love story, a time-travelling story, a space story. Yeah, the game's all over the place. But I loved it! The FMVs and the character models were a huge step up from 7, although how is Squall the prettiest person in the room? You can look at that all you want. The music was incredible in this game, Nobuo Uematsu hit it out the park, and Fisherman's Horizon is one of my favourite from the series. The game did have its critics though because of the complicated draw system, where you would actually end up taking magic from enemies, but then you can use that to influence your own stats. So whilst you take the magic, you're not necessarily ever going to use magic because you don't want to affect your stats. It was quite weird. Your summons were called Guardian Forces, and they were a main part of the story, and whilst they did have amazing animations, they went on for far too long. But it was still really cool, especially the Ifris summon, that was amazing. And you can fight a T-Rex! in like the first 20 minutes of the game, because apparently they have them in your training facility. Like, who the fuck thought that was a good idea to have a T-Rex just wandering around, that any old student could just wander in and go, yeah, come on T-Rex, let's have a go. Like, Steve Irwin's not going to come in and go, thump its arse. Ridiculous. But it also had, and this is the most important thing about Final Fantasy VIII, one of the best card games ever in Triple Triad. And guess what? You can play that bastard wherever you want. Now, I'm not going to go into Triple Triad, but the fact you could play this game whenever you want was absolutely superb. Is Renault about to die? Doesn't matter, she's out in space. Do you want to play cards? Is she hanging from the edge of a cliff? Doesn't matter, want to play cards. Are you having a piss? I don't care, I'm going to come over, want to play cards. It's absolutely amazing. I just love the fact no matter what the situation is, there's always time to play a few cards. God damn, I love Triple Triad, it's so good. Now we're into our top 5. Number 5 is Final Fantasy Tactics. Now this has just been released for all modern day consoles, and you should really go look at it and go look at my review of it. Tactics was an incredible RPG. It was one that I never unfortunately got to play until a lot later on the PSP, so I can actually say it's kind of a remake, remaster thing. I don't know, it's one of those things. The story itself was full of twists, backstabbing like you're in an episode of Game of Thrones, and you play as Ramza as you're trying to basically sort out what's going on and wondering what the hell the church is up to. Now as Ramza, you can create your own army which has a range of different jobs, and you can mix and match abilities however you want. Want to have a black mage that can punch someone? Fine. Like, I played this to death, and again I played it on the PSP, but it's still pretty much the same as the PlayStation version, just with a few little bits of frame animation and also with extra characters, so yeah, we're just gonna say it's pretty much the same. The game is relatively smooth sailing until you get to one point in the game where you can get soft locked if you're not prepared, and I guarantee there are plenty of you playing this or listening to this who have come to that and know exactly what I'm on about, and it's happened before. It's an absolute bitch. But Final Fantasy Tactics was the main reason I fell in love with tactical RPGs, and I know there are others on the system such as Vandal Hearts which I look to playing one day. I've gone on to play so many different Final Fantasy Tactics games, yes those series, but there's also Triangle Strategy which I love, the Dissidia series which I absolutely love, and if it wasn't for this game, I don't think I would have been playing it. Number 4, Castlevania Symphony of the Night. This was the game that added the Vania in Metroidvania. Not unlike other Castlevanias where you play as a Belmont, you play as Dracula's son, Alucard. Although, to be fair, you do play as Alucard in Castlevania 3. Shit. Okay, whatever. But he's been given a sexy new design, and this artwork is amazing. The story is that Richter Belmont has gone missing, and it's up to Alucard to go find out what the hell is going on. When he arrives at Dracula's castle, Alucard has lost all his abilities and weapons because of death, and you have to go round the castle to gain those abilities back and all your weapons, and take on Dracula's minions. The game also had an RPG element, where basically if Alucard's getting the shit beaten out of him, you can just go grind a bit, gain some experience, and come back and bash them back. Now around the castle there were hidden HP, MP and hearts, which I enjoyed hunting for, so basically everything I'm doing I'm smacking the walls to see what's going on. Also, Alucard had a cool backslide animation, which was actually quicker than going round normally. So imagine the CCTV cameras where all you can see is Alucard just moonwalking, going hee hee across the screen. You're like, what's he doing? He's doing it again. He's moonwalking across the castle. Now, as you go through the adventure and start exploring through the castles and beat more bosses, you gain different abilities, like you can change into a wolf, you can change into a bat, which kind of breaks the game. You can also gain double jumping, and this helps you explore more of the castle. The big twist of this game was that half of it was actually hidden if you didn't know how to access it, and if you weren't sure what was going on, you can complete the game and think, oh yeah, I've done it. No, you haven't. You haven't even done half of it, sunshine. And you miss it, and I don't know if that's good or bad design. I really don't, because the game really puts minimal hinting about it. However, this game is amazing. I love its art style, I love the music, I love the gameplay, and it still plays incredibly well to this day. It did take me a long time to finally actually get my teeth into it, but once I did, I was absolutely hooked. Like, I ended up loving games like Hollow Knight and the Metroid series, so I just got lost in these worlds. Also, the voice acting in the PlayStation version is hilarious for the time. Like, what is a man? I can probably try and give a really good go at that, but I won't, just to save all your ears. Like, I actually can't wait until we get the Netflix version of this series, because it is going to be absolutely incredible. At number 3, Street Fighter Alpha 2. Now, I know people are going to be screaming at this point, because we got 3 games to go, and Street Fighter Alpha 2 is making number 3? What about this? What about this? I know, I explained at the beginning, didn't I? We've had that discussion. Now, and also here that Street Fighter Alpha 2 is better on the Sega Saturn. I've explained this, I completely accept it. However, Street Fighter Alpha 2 I should say, is a fantastic goddamn game. And it's better than 3, as much as I have to admit that. Or 3 is just more fun, 2 is a better balanced game. And I'd already fallen in love with the artwork from the Alpha series, and it was about the time that I started getting into anime. So having a Street Fighter anime version, it just seemed natural. Also, this game introduced Sakura. Oh my god, I am in love with Sakura as a character, you sick buggers, as a character. Like, she has been my main in Street Fighter games for years upon then, and ever since I played Street Alpha 2, I just fell in love with the girl. Also, I love the box art. The box art, for me, is the greatest box art ever in a fighting game, actually in any game of all time. You can come at me in the comments with other box arts which are cooler, but I want that on my wall. Alongside a TMNT poster from the first film, and something from Escaflowne. That's a weird anime series which a lot of people might not know about. This game still plays incredibly well, and they'll still play this at events like EVO because it is still competitive to this day. Alpha 3? Nope. This one? Yes, very much so. There was also a Super Nintendo port to this game, which is a bloody goddamn miracle they got that thing to work, but they did. The runner-up at number 2 is Tekken 3. Now for me, this is the best fighting game on the platform, no doubt, and one of the best games ever made. It was a sequel to Tekken 2, but took the big risk in its story of a time skip. Now this can fail extremely badly. Look at Street Fighter 3 when that first came out, and that nearly ruined the whole franchise. A lot of the old characters here had either died, gone missing, or just simply too old to fight anymore, so a new generation had stepped forward, including Jin Kazama, who is such a cool guy, although becomes an absolute knob later on, but that's another story all in itself. The game was amazing and still plays incredibly well. They perfected what essentially was from Tekken 2 and made it one of the most competitive fighting games ever made. Yes, the system did receive another overhaul in Tekken 4, which was crap, and then got overhauled to probably where it is now in Tekken 5, and that's gone through. But Tekken 3's fighting system, when I had to play it again for the podcast, still felt so crisp, still felt so balanced, still felt like you can actually play this right now, and you go, you know what, this doesn't feel cheap, everything just looked great. The character models were amazing and a huge step up from Tekken 2 and probably killed Virtual Fighter off in doing so. Even the FMV sequences were a huge step up in this game, like Namco threw everything at Tekken 3. Namco threw everything they had at this game. Even the demo disc was amazing, like me and my brother played that just using Eddie Guardo non-stop, just mashing buttons because that's all he did with Eddie. We just played that for ages. So when Tekken 3 finally came, we saved all our pocket money up, well that was the end of that. Again, some of the endings for this game were either quite serious or they were quite silly, and I always loved the way that Tekken does silly endings. Additional modes included Tekken Force and Tekken Ball. Tekken Force is a beat-em-up game, and I kind of feel that beat-em-up games kind of fell off after the Super Nintendo Mega Drive era for a long time until Batman Arkham Asylum decided to revamp the whole thing. And Tekken Ball is where the characters are playing volleyball against each other. Yes, they're playing volleyball, where you have to charge up a volleyball and hit that to use to knock out your opponent. Stupid, but funny. There was even a guest appearance from a tiny little dinosaur called Gon. Why Gon was in there, I don't know, never seen him again since, but the guy was so funny because he could turn around and fart and knock you out. Tekken 3 for me remains one of the best games on the system. The way it handles, its music, its look, cannot really be beaten. As I said, for me, there are very few games which can do this. As a fighting game, it's top of class and considered one of the best fighting games of all time. Like if you're ever going to make a top 10, Tekken 3 could have that argument, it's going to be in there. However, it's not my number 1. Now, as I said at the beginning, I'm not including Final Fantasy VII, and I'm not including Metal Gear Solid, and I still want to hear what you guys have said is your number 1. But although I said it's not Final Fantasy VII, it is a Final Fantasy. At number 1, Final Fantasy IX. Yes, it is a Final Fantasy game that does take the top spot ahead of 7, well, ahead of 7 on this list. I fell in love with Final Fantasy IX, although it did take me a while to kind of get used to it. After a few playthroughs from when I was a kid to when I was older, I kind of understood the main story's themes. And whilst I do enjoy the world and I enjoy the combat, I enjoy a lot about it, but the main thing I love about this game is the music and the characters, specifically Steiner and Vivi. Steiner the Knight is kind of a bit of a do-gooder, which I was, but everyone kind of mocks him because as much as he tries to do his best, everyone has a go at him and thinks he's terrible when he just wants to do the right thing. As a do-gooder, he just believes he's doing the right thing and just following orders, but eventually has to question them when the evidence is put in front of his face. But it's VIII where I believe the main heart of the story lies. He is a black mage, or a black doll, and finds out that his life is pretty limited. And basically it has a story about what is the meaning of life, and what happens after you die. And it's something that really a lot of games don't cover, but it's done in such a way that we can relate to it, because eventually we will all stop moving, and what happens to us after we pass away? And what does it mean then to live? And VIII just basically wants to live and enjoy his life, although he does go through periods that he doesn't know when he's going to die. He could just die at any moment, because he's a bit of an experimental version, so it's a bit unknown if he's going to live more or live less than his counterparts. But ultimately, we're all going to die some point, and we all don't know when it's going to happen, so we should just live life the best we can. Whilst the other characters do make up a good little tale, like I like Zidane, he's a good quirky character, although I do not believe he'd be allowed to exist in this day and age with a he said. Although I do believe some of his antics, especially his pervy antics, probably need to be toned down a notch. It's a solid game, it's a solid story, and again, the fighting's cool, it goes back to a traditional Final Fantasy-esque, reminding me something from Final Fantasy IV and below, rather than a new era. So it was a bit jaunting at first, because I was like, what, we had 7 and 8? And to go back to Medieval Knights, I was really confused, because I hadn't played the earlier ones, because they weren't available to me. Well, they were, with 4 and 6, but I never played the Super Nintendo versions until much later. Again, if you could add this would be my number 3 in the top 10 of all time. I'd guarantee this is going to make an appearance in everyone's top 10, maybe not so high, because I know there are other games like Resident Evil 2, which certainly would make an appearance. Other games will be Gran Turismo 2, Vagrant Story, Xenogears, Legend of Dragoon, Tomb Raider games, like Silent Hill. I can keep going. The list is pretty big. Parasite Eve. I can keep going about what games. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. Again, I can keep going through all this, right? There are plenty of games I have not mentioned, and that's not saying I poo-pooed them. I just have not yet played them, okay? So I can guarantee when I play Resident Evil 2 for the first time, that is going to be going straight into the top 10, because I know that, well, hopefully it will. You know, I could play Crash Team Racing, and that could knock out Ridge Racer. So there are so many games I need to play, so you guys have got to let me know, what have I missed out on? What do I need to play? Whether it's one of the ones that you'd expect to be in there, or whether it's maybe a fringe game, which is sometimes there, like something like Brave Fence and Musashi. I need to play something like that. Let me know in the comments. You can have a go at me if you want and call me stupid. As I said, I didn't have access to it when I was a kid. I do have access to them now because of methods, but I really am looking forward to playing them. So you all give me a heads up. Let me know your experiences. Let me know your top 5, your top 10s, whatever you want to do in the comments below. And I'll see you in a few days where I'm probably going to be talking about the hardest NES games again, because now I've had a bit more time to play NES games, I can go, yeah, actually, here's a revamp. Here's a revamp list. Until then, my name's been Danny. You all take care of yourself. Follow your dreams.